prediction models. Now, it's easy to think about these models as sophisticated and accurate representations, but the reality is all models have flaws. We need to understand carefully what are the environments in which they should and can be used, and what are the environments in which they cannot be used.
A model is only really useful if it enables your stakeholders to answer the questions that they really need answering. So, a really good model will enable you to output the right data in the right format and is easily interpreted.
For companies engaged in the development of complex systems, modeling is a necessity. They allow us to forecast what is the system going to look like before. Before it's actually built and tested. During this course, Models in Engineering, we're going to be teaching you how to evaluate the credibility and the fidelity of existing models. And we're going to be giving you a taxonomy to help you understand what kinds of models are most useful in which environments.
How do we develop them? How do we validate them? How do we use models as part of the bigger design process?
You have to use a very robust modeling and sim capability to really say, yes, that system is going to work when presented in a real environment.
Hey there, internet friend. If you're watching this, congratulations. You've decided to start your online research training.
Does that mean I can start doing my own research online?
Whoa. Hang on there, big wheels.
Did you just boop me?
Here at the facility, accuracy is all important. And have you seen it out there? It's a wasteland of misinformation.
Yeah, it almost makes you want to go to the nearest cliff and just jump.
Doing your own research. Science today allows humans to answer the universe's most complicated questions. Why are there stars in the sky? Why are there so many amazing creatures on Earth? How might the universe finally end? Why do people like Joe Rogan? But these answers don't just happen. It's not like science works by Facebook posts, right?
Right. Yes, right. Sorry. Jeez.
So say you have a question that you want to answer using your electric internet machine. The first thing that you want to do are check for red flags.
Red flags? Like when someone's emotional problems become their entire personality?
That's right. Where will you be looking for your information? Inside an institution where many people have spent the equivalent of... You have a question that you want to answer using your electric internet machine. The first thing that you want to do are check for red flags.
Red flags? Like when someone's emotional problems become their entire personality?
That's right. Where will you be looking for your information? Inside an institution where many people have spent the equivalent of many lifetimes dedicated to dispassionately discussing and dissecting the deviously difficult? Or a conspiracy theorist tomato who sells supplements? One of these is a big red flag. This isn't to say that large institutions can't be wrong and single weirdos can't be right, but the latter has much more incentive, often monetary, to be controversial and contrarian than the former. When in doubt, start with sources with obviously and preferably overwhelming expertise. Information that has to go through 10 people before it's published will be better than information that only goes through a single filter most of the time. Now let's go deeper. Once you've found a good source of information, you'll have to interpret the information that you find. And with scientific information, that often means reading a scientific paper. Scientific papers are the lifeblood of the scientific process. Now, to the average person, a scientific paper can be quite confusing, and of course they would be. These papers are not made for you. They are made by professional smart people trying to communicate with each other. But don't worry, there is a place even the average person can start.
Even me?
Yes, even you, the least attractive Hemsworth.
Just because it's true doesn't mean you have to say it to me every day.
Reading a scientific paper. While it's true that the average person will have a hard time engaging with a scientific paper, There are ways to figure out what the paper is really saying.
And then I'm ready to get on Twitter and yell at people about doing their own research online, right?
Oh, hold on there, sports fan. Step 1. Where is the paper published? As we said, a Screaming Meatballs website won't be the best place for good information, and that's specifically because it won't have peer review. Peer review is a professional process where, before a paper is accepted by a scientific journal, relevant experts are asked to check it out. The reviewers look at the data, the methods, and the conclusions, suggest revisions, and then give the paper a go-ahead. Step 1 is to do your best to check that your paper has been peer-reviewed before proceeding onwards to the next steps. I'm not sure this inflated Yosemite Sam even knows what peer review is. Step 2. Read the abstract. Now, scientists are very smart people, but they can't know everything about everything, and they don't have the time to. That's why every scientific paper comes along with an abstract, or summary, of the paper's key questions and findings for other scientists and reviewers who may not be intimately familiar with the specifics of the work. Step 2 is to read the abstract yourself. The key point should be in the last few sentences. For example, this paper found that dung beetles can navigate at night using the light from the Milky Way. Well, how about that? Step 3. Check for conflicts. Once we have a source of information and know generally what it says, we want to check one more time for red flags. If you scroll to the bottom of a good scientific paper, it will show any conflicts of interest for the study authors. A conflict of interest, like having a study paid for by a large industry, doesn't necessarily mean that the science is bad, but it's definitely something to keep in mind. Good thing this dung beetle study wasn't paid for by Big Poop. At this point, if your peer-reviewed, conflict-free abstract is written somewhat understandably, who is talking right now? You should feel pretty good about where doing your own research has gotten.
So we're done. I can do my own research online?
Almost. But if you really want to be secure in the searching you've done, and you're slightly more savvy, there are a couple more checks you can do.
Wow. It almost seems like what people say they do on social media is nothing like actually doing research.
It's time for the lightning round. Is the sample size large enough? Is the sample representative? Are the experiments randomized? Are the experiments double-blinded? Is there a control group? Uh-oh. What is it? It seems that we have an emergency situation. We've run across information from known misinformation peddlers.
Hey, I know what to do. Depending on the platform, you should definitely report these people because words matter online and it leads to actual harm in daily life.
Good work, Mr. Hill. Nicely done. Wait, you didn't get your PhD?
Well, now you just sound like my dad.
Final checks. So, we found a source of information, checked it the best we could, watched out for known bad actors, and we're in the best position to come to a conclusion after doing our own research.
Yeah, now we can do one final check to see if the claim we were presented with or some headline was misinterpreted, just plain wrong, or sensationalized.
That's right, Mr. Hill.
Okay, but what if we go through all of this and we still have some kind of
emergency situation? Well, that brings us to the last step. Interfacing on social media. After doing your own research, of course you need to go and talk about it on social media. If you don't, how would anyone know that your very existence has value? If only there was another way to tell that. But what if people start calling you names? Or a shill? Or tell you that you are straight up wrong and then yell at you with characters? What should you do then, Mr. Hill?
I should ruminate on those comments all day and let them affect my self-worth.
Now, remember what we've learned.
Right. If someone's mean to me on the internet... It's almost like those online interactions didn't actually matter. Well, at least we learned something. Until next time.
Now exiting the facility.
Calbright is a public online-only California community college. We offer programs in in-demand fields and career coaching to help you navigate the job market. Our flexibly paced programs run at your own pace, so you can move ahead when you're ready. We're a new kind of college for students whose lives don't fit into a mold.
Thank you so much to the very nerdy staff at the facility for their direct and substantial support in the creation of this here video. Today especially, I want to recognize research assistant Jess and visiting scholar Sky Kitsune Studios. If you want to join the facility, if you want to drape on a silky white lab coat, if you want to see videos early, get behind the scenes photos, get monthly members only live streams with me and talk to me every day on Discord, yes, like that, you can go to patreon.com/Kyle Hill and join the facility today. And hey, if you support us just enough, get your name on Aria here each and every week. And as you can see, there's literally over 1,000 of you. So I have no idea how I'm going to pass it to. Yes, I did steal this entire episode idea from SpongeBob. But if you're going to rip off anything, SpongeBob's not a bad place. Oh, and when you're on the internet, in addition to looking out for bad actors and known misinformation peddlers, if anyone comes at you with the first thing that they say is, "Hey, you just made some kind of logical fallacy," that's a red flag. When the only thing someone knows is what a logical fallacy is and doesn't know how to use it, that means they didn't do their research. Trust me. Around 200 years ago, it was the mastery of this material, coal, that enabled the Industrial Revolution and lifted human civilization up to new heights. Cars, planes, electricity across the globe, AirPods that you think make you look cool, but really don't. Fossil fuels have enabled some truly amazing things. But like the practice of FaceTiming in public without headphones, the time of coal is at an end. It's time to reset public perceptions of power. It's time to go nuclear.
Now entering the facility.
As we travel to the reactor, I know that nuclear power has a lot of strong opinions associated with it, so before I argue that the world needs a lot more nuclear power, why don't we go through basically how nuclear power works. The secret of nuclear power is to take advantage of what radioactive material already wants to do: decay. When radioactive material decays over the course of its half-life, random high-energy pieces of itself fly out in all directions. What nuclear engineers do is take this nuclear material, usually in the form of fuel rods, and arrange it carefully such that when these high-energy particles come out, they hit other fuel rods, encouraging chain reactions to happen. If you do this carefully, like we said, you can generate immense amounts of heat from the radioactive material all on its own. We use this heat to generate steam from water, and then that steam turns turbines to generate electricity. Now, yes, coal-fired power plants do exactly the same thing, but where coal is impossibly outclassed by nuclear power is in energy density. And yes, my hyperrail here is nuclear power.
Hyperrail velocity at 67% above safe parameters.
I may have made a few changes to the standard it's probably fine. This is 1 kilogram of naturally refined carbon, ancient molecules compressed and heated over millions of years in the depths of planet Earth. If you add a little energy to this lump, you can release all the chemical potential that's been waiting millions of years to get out and, I don't know, charge your vape pen. Wow, how poetic. Fossil fuel like this led the Industrial Revolution because it is so energy dense. For example, in just 1 kilogram, you might be able to release 25 million joules of chemical energy. This, on my other hand, is 1 kilogram of pure uranium-235. Let me ask you this question. How much coal do you think it would take to match the energy I can get out of this amount of uranium inside of a fission reactor? Well, spoiler alert, it's this much. Over 1 million kilograms of coal just to equal what I can hold in my hand. Nuclear fuel is 1 million times more energy dense than fossil fuel, which means it would take relatively few nuclear reactors across the planet to completely replace fossil fuels. And I argue that we simply must replace them, if nothing else, to save lives. The public sentiment towards nuclear power is very negative. Many of you watching probably feel negatively about it and think that inside of a nuclear power plant is one of the most dangerous places you could be, but that's simply not true. Let's try a little thought experiment, shall we? Let's imagine a hypothetical town of 27,000 homes that houses, let's just say off the top of my head, 187,000 people. I chose that number because our hypothetical reactor down here beneath my feet is producing 1 terawatt hour of energy per year, 1 trillion watt hours of energy. Now, I ask you, how many people per year in our hypothetical town will lose their lives as a direct result from pollution and accidents relating to different sources of energy? Well, if all this energy was coming from coal, we'd expect 25 people per year to lose their lives as a result of mining accidents, pollution, etc. If this was a natural gas town, that number drops to about 3 people per year as the safety goes up. Where's nuclear power, you might ask? Less than a single person per year. It would take years and years before we saw any real result or impact from this power in this way. The only thing that's actually safer than nuclear power in this regard is wind and solar. And yes, that's even with this weird glowing thing happening beneath my feet, which I happen to think is pretty cool. Now, I know what you're probably thinking at this point.
But Kyle, what about the Chernobyl and Fukushima nuclear disasters?
Well, yes, those incidents were terrible, a showcase of what could happen when nuclear power goes wrong, and it cost a lot of human lives. But we need to keep the context here. These were some of the most publicized events in human history. Does the public opinion and the press actually reflect the harm that was done by these incidents? Well, let me present to you a graph. This graph will show the number of deaths associated with pollution, production, accidents of different sources of power per terawatt hour, just like in our hypothetical town. As you might suspect, there aren't a lot of pollution and accidents and generation fatalities from wind and solar. They're fairly low. But where do you think nuclear and coal will end up? Well, coal is a lot, as we'll get into a little bit later, 100,000 deaths per terawatt hour from pollution and mining accidents, etc. And nuclear power is, all the way down there, below wind and solar. Now, hear me very clearly. According to all the data that we have, nuclear power is literally the safest form of power that we have. Let that sink in for a second, including everything that happened after Chernobyl, including everything that happened with Fukushima, including disasters, pollution, accidents, everything. Nuclear power is still the safest form of energy that we've ever had. But don't let that fact sink in this much. This is really bad. Kevin, can you get the iodine pills, please? Now, I'm sure you know that fossil fuel comes from fossils, but what fossils are we talking about exactly? There you are. I'd argue that most people think fossil fuels come from the most famous of fossils, the dinosaurs, but this is a persistent and grand misconception. Fossil fuels come from ancient carbon. Carbon is what makes something organic, but carbon in these forms takes millions and millions and millions of years of temperature and pressure to form, time that the dinosaurs just haven't had yet. So all of our fossil fuels actually come from fossilized zoo and phytoplankton from the world's early oceans and from terrestrial plants and trees from the Carboniferous period 300.
Excuse me. Wow. Sorry. Yeah, have good days. Holy shit.